Alright, let me tell you how everything really changed for me on a night I'll never forget. Because if you ever thought your quiet life was safe, let me stop you right there. It only takes one storm and two strangers for everything you think you know to fall apart. I was just trying to make it through another Tuesday, rain slamming against the garage roof, wind howling like it had a vendetta, when I opened the door and found them. This woman, battered and barely conscious, and a little boy gripping her hand so tight, it was like she was the last thing keeping him alive. No names, no story, nothing but raw fear in their eyes. I figured I'd help for a night, maybe two, and then get back to the lonely routine I'd built to keep myself from feeling too much. But man, you know what? That was the night my so-called peace got blown wide open, and everything I thought I'd put behind me came roaring back to life. It's wild how you measure time differently after you lose everything that matters. Every day becomes about surviving one more night, one more memory. After Sarah died in that house fire, I stopped being Caleb Monroe, husband and volunteer firefighter, and started being this shell of a dad, just trying to keep Josie safe upstairs. Hiding from my own grief behind engine blocks and late nights at the garage. Sarah had picked this place out, said we could turn the upstairs into a real home, but after she was gone, I finished the job more out of stubbornness than hope. The walls still echo with conversations we never finished, dreams I had to let die, and I'd gotten used to the silence. To the smell of motor oil covering up the sharp scent of loss. Josie. She tried to fill the void, always chattering about school and friends, but even she could feel the cold space between us. All those questions she didn't dare ask, like why I jumped every time she laughed too loud, or why I could never bring myself to visit Sarah's grave. You want to talk about being afraid of getting close? Yeah, that was me, building walls so high, not even my own daughter could climb over. So when that woman showed up, bruised, soaked, wearing clothes that screamed money but were ripped to shreds, and that silent kid beside her, I almost called the cops like I'd been trained to. But there was something in their eyes that made me stop, a kind of fear that wasn't just about violence. It was about knowing there was nowhere left to run. I carried her inside, set her on the old office couch, and watched the kid, Max, I'd learn later, hover like a guard dog, refusing to let go of her hand. He wouldn't speak, just kept those big green eyes locked on me, flinching at every sudden move, and when I offered him food, he tested it first like he'd been through more bad situations than any 6-year-old ever should. That night, with the rain beating on the roof and two strangers asleep in my office, I realized I'd just broken every rule I'd set for myself about letting people in. And you know what? I was terrified, but I also felt more alive than I had in years. By morning, the questions had only multiplied. The woman, she moved around my place like she belonged, making breakfast out of whatever was left in my pantry, tidying up spots I hadn't bothered to touch in months. Her hands were graceful, sure, but they shook when she thought nobody was looking. Max still wouldn't talk, but he watched Josie with this quiet longing, like he wanted to be a normal kid for just one day. Josie, bless her, tried to bring him out of his shell, talking cartoons and school, sharing cereal like they'd been friends forever, but Max was always one step removed. Running everything through that filter of suspicion, I started noticing all the little details, the way the woman checked the locks, the almost military way she scanned the exits, the bandages on her arms that looked like they'd been done by a pro, not in some ER, but somewhere private and expensive, and those papers in Max's backpack, wrapped up like they were the crown jewels. Yeah, something was way off. I found myself asking Danny Rodriguez, my old buddy at the sheriff's office, if he'd heard anything about missing persons. And when he told me about Elena Ward and her son Max, both presumed dead in a helicopter crash after her husband's accidental death, that cold feeling in my gut turned to ice. All the evidence pointed to them being dead, but here they were, hiding in my garage, and whoever had faked their deaths wanted the world to believe they'd succeeded. When Elena finally told me the truth, whispering her story while Max and Josie finally slept without nightmares, it was bigger than I could have imagined. Money laundering, murder, a corporate empire rotten from the inside, and she'd only gotten out with the help of a nurse who saw what was really going on. They'd been ghosts for months, dodging private security, hiding evidence in safe deposit boxes, and now, thanks to me, the sharks were circling. You ever have one of those moments where you know your way out of your depth? but you're already in too deep to walk away. That's where I was the night the first corporate goon showed up. Smooth talker, expensive suit, asking all the right questions. Leaving behind a business card that practically screamed, "This is a threat." Then came the break-in. The midnight message with a photo of Josie and a demand. Turn over Max, or your daughter disappears. That was it for me. Rage like I hadn't felt since the fire that took Sarah. Elena wanted to run, to save Josie by vanishing again, but I was done running. I told her, "We end this tonight." And I meant it. The plan was nuts. Use Elena's evidence, draw out the bad guys, stage a public confrontation where they couldn't just make us disappear. As we hashed it out, Elena dropped another bomb. She remembered me from years ago, the oil platform fire in Alaska. I'd pulled her out, told her to trust me, and now she was trusting me again. Not just with her life, but her son's. Destiny. Fate. I don't know. You ever get the feeling some stories just circle back around until you do what you should have done all along? That's what it felt like. We set up the handover in front of the courthouse. Every news crew for miles tipped off, the sheriff's deputies hidden in plain sight. Richard Ward rolled up, smug as ever, thinking he'd walk away with the boy and the fortune. But Elena had it all, documents, recordings, the works, and when she dropped the truth in front of the cameras, all hell broke loose. Deputies closed in, federal agents swooped, and for the first time in years, I saw justice being served not by men in suits, but by the truth coming out where everyone could see it. Max clung to me, asked if it was over, and all I could say was, "Yeah, buddy, it's over. But you know as well as I do, nothing's ever really over." What comes next is the hard part, figuring out how to live with what's left. Elena took control of Ward Industries, turned the whole mess into something new, a foundation for kids like Max, for families like ours who had been through hell and needed a second chance. She wanted to buy the garage, turn it into a training center, a home base for the Phoenix Foundation. And you bet I resisted at first, didn't want charity. But it wasn't charity, it was redemption, a way for all of us to make something good out of all that pain. Max needed time to heal. Elena had her demons. Josie was still learning how to love again. And I had to face that maybe, just maybe, I deserved another shot at being happy. Slowly, we became a family, not by blood, but by choice. Max started calling me Dad. Josie protected him like a lion. Elena, she was the first to really see me since Sarah, to remind me that love wasn't about who you lost, but about who you dared to save. We got married in that garage, just a handful of us, and I'll tell you, there wasn't a dry eye, not even Max, who finally believed he was safe. Now the garage is more than a business. It's a symbol, a place where broken things get fixed and broken people get a chance to start over. The Phoenix Foundation is thriving, helping kids, giving them the hope and security they deserve. Some nights, when the world is quiet, I watch my family and think about how close I came to losing everything again, how easy it is to survive, but how hard it is to really live. But here's the kicker. Life never gives you clean endings. The shadows of what we've been through still linger. Elena sometimes wakes up sweating. Max jumps at loud noises. Josie worries about forgetting her mom, and I still wonder if I'm enough. But we face it all together, every day, and that's what makes us stronger. We chose each other. Again and again, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. So if you're listening, if you ever doubt whether it's worth risking everything for people you barely know, let me be the one to tell you. Sometimes, that's the only way you ever get to see what family really means. Sometimes the greatest act of courage isn't running into burning buildings. It's letting yourself be loved after everything's been burned away. And if you think this is the end, think again. Life keeps coming, keeps testing what you're willing to fight for, and I, for one, wouldn't have it any other way. Now tell me, what would you have done in my place? Where's the line between justice and revenge? Between protecting your own and saving a stranger? Drop your thoughts below, because I promise, someone out there needs to hear your answer as much as I once needed to find mine.